this is Craig from bitspops.co.uk. In this video I'm going to show you how to create a really cool effect simply using minitaire ghost tints and white, as well as using the stencil. Quick disclaimer is that if you're in the mini wargame Vault, you can go to the download section and you can see a similar effect in a video in there, which was created by Lester from Awesome Paint Job. So this is the effect I'm talking about, and I used it on my Imperial Night Warden. People have described it as like a nebula, so we're just going to call it that nebula effect. And as you can see, I think it looks pretty effective, and it's actually really simple to do. And this video will show you how. So these are the colours I'm using. I'm using Model Air White, and I'm using Ghost Tints Blue and Plasma Fluid from a minitaire range. Now the reason I don't use a minitaire Skull White is because I just don't like it. So this is the piece I'm working on, and this is the stencil I'm using. You can use any old stencil or a piece of card, as long as you sort of get like lines on the piece you're working on. And this is the airbrush I'm using. Just a cheap old airbrush. I like this because I can just adjust the air pressure on it, which is very handy for doing these lines. So we'll start off with Model Air White. So we take our stencil, we just place it just somewhere random really, and we just start to spray the white on. Just be sort of mindful of overspray. I get a little bit on this, but that's the sort of thing we're sort of looking for. Just get a line so you get a nice sharp black line, as well as your white sort of fading into grey. And then we simply just do this over the piece we're working on. This piece is from one of the 412 Knights. I think it's one of his shin guards. So I start by doing a few parallel lines. So that's the first two. I'm sorry that some of it's just a little bit out of shot here. And it's just a case of just going back and forth. You don't have to keep the lines dead parallel. I like to just keep things just as random as possible. But you can do any shapes really. You can even get other stencils and pans. But I just like to just do random lines here and there, just like curves and waves. And you see I use like a wavy line piece here. I do apologise if my hand gets in the way of the camera. It's very awkward to airbrush and film at the same time, especially when you're using stencils also, so you have to use both hands. This piece here I wish I would have done in just one smooth line rather than two small ones. You see there's sort of a weird pattern there, but it doesn't matter too much. And you can see some areas I've gone a bit heavier than others, just to sort of mix it up a bit. Now I just start doing more lines, just in random directions. Now it's up to you how many you do really. Just try not to do like too much so the whole thing just doesn't end up white or grey. And this is my finished piece. As you see just in the right hand corner there's probably a little bit too much white, but never mind. So, next up we get Ghost Tint Blue, give it a good shake. And what you want to do is just do several sort of light passes with this. Don't just spray it on too heavy in one go, just keep it light, and then you can just keep going back over it until you're happy with the colour. But you can see already it's starting to change blue. Yeah, as long as you keep it light, then that should look quite nice. And you see all that white's being tinted blue, and the black will just remain black. It's how Ghost Tints work. You just tint the lighter colours. And already you can see it's starting to look quite impressive, even at this stage. So So that's the first go with the minitaire blue. And what you want to do now is leave it to dry for a good few hours. I recommend like 6 to 12 hours, 24 possibly, and then give it some flat coat or any sort of varnish really. But you need to seal the ghost tints, otherwise they can start bleeding through when you start painting over them. So make sure you definitely seal them after they've dried. So I come back to it several hours later. Still got a nice shine to it, even though it's had the flat coat varnish. So we come back in with our model air white, and essentially we're just doing the same thing again, but we're just going to hit certain points more heavier than others. So we're sort of going back over what we did, but not entirely, so it's sort of like just a highlight really. And you'll see it here, just as I do it, the white just comes out just a bit too heavy for my liking there, just in that bit. So just be mindful here, just be lighter on the trigger, because I was too heavy on the trigger there. So just keep it light, and you can always go over it again if it's too light. It's much easier than taking away too much. So just be very careful. You can get away with overspray on the first pass, but once you start doing your highlights, you need to be just a bit more mindful, a bit more careful. And I'm sort of just doing it quickly here, just to show an example. So again, we just go over several points, just the same as we did before. You haven't got to get the pattern exact, like I don't try and get it sort of spot on. But I mean, you haven't even got to follow the pattern, you could do something completely different if you wanted to. But I find that this looks pretty cool, so I'll just go over again, highlighting what you've already done. And then this line up here is sort of just added. I just felt that area was just a bit too sort of bland, sort of just lacking colour a bit from the first go. So I just added an extra line there. So this is all the extra highlights in place. As you can see, I haven't gone overboard with them. Just several here and there. So next up, you have my favourite colour, which is Ghost Tint Plasma Fluid. Always nice just to find an excuse to use this colour, because it's my favourite by far. And it really makes this effect pop, so I really like it. And again, it's just the same as before. Just go over lightly, several passes rather than just one big heavy burst. And then you already start to see these highlights pop. And you see it's starting to take on this little lighter turquoisey blue highlight now. And that is essentially it. It is just as simple as that. It doesn't take too long at all. I mean, most of the time spent just waiting for the ghost tints to dry. I just come back over just a little bit more, but that is it. It looks better sort of close up to the camera. And as you can see, sort of just in that corner, it's too much blue for my liking, so I'll probably put a transfer over or something. And when I'm painting the gold trim, that shouldn't be as noticeable. But yeah, it's as easy as that, so give it a try.